Coming up on today's San Francisco 49ers Report, some injury news on Deshaun Watson going into Sunday's game against Cleveland. We have a Randy Gregory update and some 49ers news and notes on Brock Purdy as well as Fred Warner that you do not want to miss. Before we dive into all of that on today's show, how many subscribers can we pick up before game day? We're doing another watch party for this matchup against the Browns on Sunday as San Francisco hits the road. Currently, a little more than 93,000 people worldwide are subscribed to the show. Can we get the 94K prior to kickoff? We're on the road to getting that plaque from YouTube. Let's start off here with some injury news pertaining to the Browns, but also it impacts San Francisco. On Deshaun Watson, it's becoming more and more clear that Watson might not be able to give it a go in Sunday's game against San Francisco. Watson did not practice on Monday, coming off the bye, did not practice on Wednesday, and the injury, it's an interesting one. A rotator cuff contusion, not always easy to bounce back from, especially when it is on your throwing shoulder like it is for Deshaun Watson. Now, a couple of weeks ago in Week 4, Watson was a surprise scratch prior to the Browns taking on the Baltimore Ravens. He was medically cleared by the Browns medical staff, but he pulled himself out of that football game. So it really brings up a couple of interesting scenarios. Is this injury a little bit worse than originally anticipated? Or a lot of Niner fans want this to be true. Does Deshaun Watson just not want to play the San Francisco 49ers? Coming off the bye, he looked at the Niners thrashing, dominating, embarrassing the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, and he's like, that defense with Javon Hargrave, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, Charvarius Ward, and that offense that is outscoring opponents, dominating them, averaging much more than 30 points per game. They put up a 42 spot against those fraudulent Cowboys. Yeah, my shoulder's hurting a little bit. I think that I'm going to sit this one out. We'll see. I want to see how the San Francisco defense fares against a quarterback who's capable and talented like Watson. He's been pretty bad for the Cleveland Browns. Not the same player he was when he was at the peak of his powers with the Houston Texans, when I thought arguably could have been a top 5 guy, but still has that ability, and there is talent inside that arm. And then there's this from Kevin Stefanski, the Browns head coach, coming from one of the Browns reporters, that Deshaun Watson working very hard throughout this process, has been able to throw better than he did prior to the Ravens game, and he is getting better. But I think a lot of people in Browns land a little bit surprised that Watson could not practice on Wednesday, and that's when the official beginning of game day, game week prep starts on that Wednesday to get ready for a Sunday opponent. When Watson did not play against Baltimore, they got dominated by the Baltimore Ravens, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson had actually gotten the start. Former quarterback at UCLA under Chip Kelly. A lot of Niner fans were interested in San Francisco taking him in the later rounds of the 2023 NFL Draft just because of Brock Purdy's injury, and they like the player. I like the player too, but when he was thrust into action against a solid and well-coached team, 19 of 36, 121 yards, no touchdowns, 3 picks, a far cry from what DTR was able to do in the preseason for Cleveland. And if DTR cannot play, and it looks as though he's not going to play, what I should say is that the Baltimore Ravens really exposed DTR to a certain degree. So because of that, going into this game against San Francisco, because Cleveland is trying to save the confidence of DTR, they're actually going to go with P.J. Walker as their starting quarterback. P.J. Walker would start for Cleveland if Deshaun Watson cannot go. Hopefully I cleared that up for everybody. Walker went to Temple University. That's actually where I went. I covered him when he was playing there. Solid player under Matt Rule. A decent backup throughout his NFL career. Chicago Bears actually paid him this offseason, coming off of a couple of starts with the Carolina Panthers last year, and he didn't work out to be the backup for Justin Fields. They let him go. Cleveland brought him in, and if Watson can't play, it's going to be P.J. Walker, not DTR, as the team's starting quarterback. So this is another opportunity for this Niners defense to have its way and to dominate this football game and to get that record to 6-0. I think San Francisco right now, the best team in football for how they're humming offensively and then how they're getting after it defensively. And they'll be able to get after it defensively if P.J. Walker is the team starting quarterback for Cleveland. Offensively for the Niners, they're averaging 33.4 points per game. They went up to number 2 in the NFL after dropping 42 on the Cowboys' head. 402 yards per game. That's number 3 in the league offensively. Yards per play, number 2. Third down percentage for San Francisco, now inside the top 5. I thought Purdy did some really good things on third downs against Dallas. And then number 2, touchdowns per game offensively. And then you look at the right side of your screen. Those are the defensive numbers for the Niners here. And they're really starting to climb the ladder and climb the leaderboard among all defenses in the National Football League. It's no longer the Dallas Cowboys, who are number 1 in points per game allowed as they went into Sunday Night Football, giving up a shade over 10 points per game. Now it's San Francisco at 13.5. So they're number 1 now, number 3 in yards given up, number 3 in yards per play. Third down percentage, still not great, middle of the pack at 16, but number 3 overall in touchdowns surrendered per game as well. So that's kind of how things impact San Francisco in that area. And then there's some more injury news here for Cleveland, which isn't ideal. Joe Bitonio, who's one of their best offensive linemen, he's dealing with an unspecified injury. He's day-to-day, was seen leaving the facility in crutches last week. He's been an Iron Man of sorts, has not missed a game since 2016. So to kind of round out this conversation, Deshaun Watson might not play. If he does not, P.J. Walker will, not Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Either way, edge goes to San Francisco with how well their defense is playing right now under defensive coordinator Steve Wilks. And on top of that, Niners defensive line can have a day once again if Joel Bitonio cannot go. Now, if you think the Niners will crush the Cleveland Browns, San Francisco, let me know by hitting that thumbs up icon and liking the video. I think this is going to be another Niners dub, and the train keeps rolling. More to get to on the other side. We're only getting started on today's show, but first, make sure you get started with PrizePicks. You can get up to a $100 deposit match at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use the code CLNS. If you click on this link right now and you see what PrizePicks has to offer, I want you to type me down in the comment section here because I want to know that you're a real one. My picks for this week, their more or less game is fantastic. Deebo Samuel, I'm going to go more than 47.5 receiving yards. He had that big splash play against Dallas, but I think that Deebo, who's kind of been missing from the pass game as far as production goes the last 2 weeks, coming off of that monster Thursday night game against the Giants, he gets going through the air. I think George Kittle coming off the hat trick, he has another big outing, more than 40.5 receiving yards for him. And because of the quarterback questions for Cleveland, give me Amari Cooper less than 59.5 receiving yards. I'm telling you, this is the largest independently run daily fantasy sports app in North America. So use the code CLNS. Get that up to $100 deposit match and download PrizePicks today. It makes game day a lot more fun. Next up on the show, Randy Gregory update. Expected to make his Niners debut against the Cleveland Browns. San Francisco trading late-round draft capital for him last Friday. We talked about it here on the show. And he's going to be wearing the number 5. Does the number 5 jersey sound and look familiar when you close your eyes and think about it? Who was the last Niner to wear that jersey? Yes, Trey Lance. So it's going to be interesting to see Randy Gregory as a defensive end on the defensive side of the football several weeks after Trey Lance got dealt to the Dallas Cowboys wearing his same number, but life goes on in the NFL. It's a business. Jackson Austin Bryant had 1 pressure each against Dallas. That's a big reason why the Niners are making this move for Randy Gregory. You can never have enough edge rushers and pass rushers. You know, my rules when building a football team, you got to get your quarterback, protect the quarterback, and get after the quarterback. The Niners right now doing that at all 3 levels, and Randy Gregory will help them attack opposing quarterbacks. I don't think that this is a slight on Drake Jackson. I think that he can still play. I still think he has ability. He's still young, but it's just another depth piece to help out Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave, who's having a stellar season. Bosa against the Cowboys had 7 pressures on 24 pass rushing attempts. So can you imagine what he's going to be able to do with more help along that defensive line? Less one-on-ones could lead to more sacks for the highest paid defender in the history of the NFL. Gregory, what has he done this year? we have you covered. So that Denver Broncos team is awful. Sean Payton, Russell Wilson, both might be washed. And that Denver Broncos defense is atrocious. But Gregory's numbers this year, not awful by any means. And you look at the production here on this screen and you think, okay, playing alongside Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, Nick Bosa, you have the linebackers and Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw behind me. And then you have Talanoa Hufanga and Deshaun Gibson at that third level. Is that going to allow Randy Gregory to start really turning it up? And does it also help out the rest of this defense just produce some more sacks? Because the sack production has been somewhat low for the Niners as compared to last year through 5 games. Hargrave is leading the way with 3. Drake Jackson has 3. Fred Warner, 2 sacks from that linebacker spot. Sacks come in bunches, ladies and gentlemen. So at some point, they're going to come in bunches for the defending Defensive Player of the Year in Nick Bosa, and then Kevin Givens with 1 sack as well. The Randy Gregory trade, some fans were freaking out about it, saying character issues, he's gotten into a bunch of trouble, most of that because of the use of marijuana and weed, but what I think is telling is that the Randy Gregory trade has been applauded across the entire Niners locker room by some team leaders and team captains. For instance, Eric Armstead, who's always up for Walter Payton Man of the Year, is always giving back charitably to different organizations in the Bay Area. He said, this move is awesome. This is the type of player that we want. Randy Gregory is perfect for us. So when a player like that is saying that about Randy Gregory, I think that's of note. And again, talented guy who's like 6'5", 240, 250 pounds with a lot of ability to rush the passer with Chris Kocurek in this system with Steve Wilks playing with Nick Bosa. I think the opportunities for him could be plentiful. So that's the latest on Gregory there. Want to also segue to Brock Purdy on today's show because the Cinderella run continues for Mr. Irrelevant. Brock Purdy is now the favorite to win the 2023 NFL MVP award. What a wild run this has been over less than a calendar year from when he replaced Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, how quickly he's been able to take the league by storm really is incredible. You look at the newest MVP odds, Brock Purdy up top at plus 375 through 5 weeks, ahead of Patrick Mahomes at plus 450, Tua Tagovailoa 5-1 odds, Josh Allen with 6-1 odds, Jalen Hurts sitting there at 7-1, and then if you want some extraordinary value, I think it's highly doubtful that a running back is going to win MVP, but man, if you think McCaffrey can be the one to do it, 14-1 odds. You put down $1, and if he wins, that's $14 back. Not a bad investment right there. And then more notes with Purdy here, with just some staggering numbers up to this point. He is 12-0 now in his career in games that he has started and finished. That includes a 10-0 mark in the regular season and then 2 wins in the playoffs. Not going to give him credit for a loss against the Eagles in the NFC Championship game because he left so early. Purdy, also the first quarterback in NFL history to go 5-0 in each of his first 2 seasons. And then when you rank him among all quarterbacks in the NFL right now, number 1 in quarterback rating, 2nd in yards per attempt, 2nd in completion percentage, and has thrown 9 touchdowns to no interceptions. This is a shocking start to a career for a guy who was selected last in the 2022 NFL Draft, and that's what makes this storyline so riveting, is that this really is an underdog and Cinderella story for a guy who legitimately right now is playing like a top 10 quarterback. Fred Warner, after dominating the Dallas Cowboys, I think Dak Prescott had some nightmares about number 54 in that scarlet red, was named NFC Defensive Player of the Week after what he did on Sunday Night Football, and the tallies were awesome. Fred Warner was so good in that game. His anticipatory skills, diagnosing what the Cowboys wanted to do pre-snap, that patience that he showed on that Dak Prescott sack where he was in coverage and then he charged at Dak, still brought him down. The peanut punch on Tony Pollard, going stride for stride with Brandon Cooks. All of the plays that he made in that game, the interception as well, he was awesome. Pressuring the quarterback as we just showed you, tackles, forced fumbles, interceptions. Fred Warner is the best linebacker in the game, and it's not even close. And I think he's moving himself into the conversation for me as one of my favorite defensive players of all time and one of the best linebackers of all time. Partially what makes a player great, his durability. And knock on wood, Fred Warner has been so durable throughout his career up to this point, and if that continues, he's really going to go down as one of the greats to ever do it, and maybe it ends up with him rocking a brown jacket in Canton. So with that, I want you to have some fun with this question to round out the show. The linebackers for the Niners over the last 15 years have terrorized opponents. You had Navarro Bowman and Patrick Willis for a while, and now San Francisco has Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. So what is the best Niners linebacking duo between those two duos? Bowman and Willis, Warner and Greenlaw. You let me know. Don't forget to subscribe. As always, thanks for tuning into the 49ers Report, and we'll be live tomorrow on Thursday. Hope to see you all there.